At 2:46 p.m., the Earth shook, and Japan thought the worst had already happened. But the tsunami wasn't the real disaster. Within minutes, a nuclear power plant lost control. Explosions tore through reactor buildings, radiation began leaking into the air. And inside government rooms, a terrifying realization set in. This wasn't just a natural disaster, it was a catastrophe that should never have happened. And what they discovered next would expose a failure far more dangerous than the wave itself. Naoto Kan was a small-town dentist's son who rose to Japan's premiership, and on March 11, 2011, he became the human face of a crisis that would expose more than nature's fury. At 2:46 p.m., a magnitude 9.0 earthquake off the Tohoku coast unleashed a wall of water that raced over seawalls, flooded power stations, and left the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant without the electricity needed to cool its reactors. What followed was a procedural nightmare. Backup diesel generators were drowned, cooling systems failed, reactors 1 through 3 overheated and partially melted. Hydrogen buildups exploded through containment buildings. Evacuation orders expanded from a 3-kilometer precaution to 20, then 30, as smoke, confusion, and fear spread across nearby towns. But this story is as much about people and institutions as it is about waves and reactors. In TEPCO control rooms, operators improvised under impossible conditions. In government offices, officials wrestled with incomplete data. Prime Minister Naoto Kan, who often described himself as unequipped for a nuclear crisis, spent hours on the phone with executives and regulators, pressing for seawater injection, worker deployment, and transparency. He later told investigators he feared the plant might explode, that Tokyo could be rendered uninhabitable, and that only direct intervention prevented worse outcomes. The drama deepened as independent inquiries peeled back the institutional layers. In 2012, the Fukushima Nuclear Accident Independent Investigation Commission, led by Kiyoshi Kurokawa, delivered a stinging verdict. The disaster was man-made. The commission found a culture of complacency cultivated by collusion, a close relationship between government, regulators, and the utility that sustained a safety myth. Warnings about tsunami risks and weak countermeasures had been ignored or downplayed. Regulators failed to assert independence. TEPCO minimized risks and did not prepare for a multi-reactor crisis. The result was a catastrophic gap between risk and readiness. This was not a hidden conspiracy, but an institutional one. Shared assumptions, economic priorities over safety, and a system that rewarded conformity. Key records revealed delays in critical decisions, venting steam, assessing meltdowns, evacuating workers, and a pattern of withholding full information from the public. Whistleblowers and journalists exposed manipulated safety reports and long-standing safety culture failures. The human toll was immediate and lasting. More than 160,000 people were displaced. Many lost homes, livelihoods, and their sense of place. Workers who remained at the plant performed heroically under lethal conditions, while contaminated water continued to accumulate for years. A decade later, a new controversy emerged. Facing limited storage, Japan and TEPCO proposed releasing treated water, filtered through ALPS and reviewed by the IAEA, into the Pacific. In 2023, the controlled discharge began, backed by international safety assessments. Yet neighboring countries, fishing communities, and environmental groups protested, accusing authorities of sidelining local voices and repeating a legacy of secrecy. Today, the cleanup and decommissioning of Fukushima Daiichi will take decades. Major challenges remain unresolved. The Commission's conclusion remains clear. A culture of collusion and complacency created the conditions for catastrophe. Naoto Kan left office months later, haunted by the decisions he made and the choices he had to force. The tsunami was the trigger, but the disaster's worst dimensions were written by human systems that failed to imagine the unimaginable and failed to act when warnings came. Fukushima stands as a double tragedy of natural disaster and institutional collapse, and a warning of what happens when human failure meets unstoppable force.